Institutions don't create careers, they create legacies. And in India, very few institutions carry that legacy like the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. For decades, the IIM brand has stood for excellence, exclusivity, and transformation, producing some of the country's finest business leaders. And traditionally, this journey began only after graduation. But last year, IIMK changed the program and they brought BMS. So, this experience has opened the doors for students right after 12th, something that was once unthinkable. And naturally, when a legacy like this evolves, it brings both excitement and tough questions. Is this experience truly at par with the IIM standard? How does it compare with existing programs like IPM? And most importantly, what is the real outcome after 1 year? Today, we move beyond perception, beyond assumptions, and straight into reality. A very, very warm welcome to entire IIM Kozhikode team. I'm going to introduce them one by one. We have with us, and we have amongst us, Professor Anand Kuttan Bionithan, Dean Programs at Institute of Management, Kozhikode. Professor Anand is a senior faculty member in marketing with extensive academic leadership experience. He has held multiple key roles, including Dean, mentor professor, and leadership responsibilities at Kochi campus. He has also contributed to research and case development in management studies. A very, very warm welcome on Supergrads platform, sir. We also do have with us Professor Venkatraman S., Associate Dean at the Kochi campus of Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. Professor Venkatraman is a faculty member in strategic management. He has played an active role in leading academic and executive education initiatives at the Kochi campus, including chairing campus level activities and engaging with participants through academic programs. Very warm welcome, Professor Venkatraman, as well. We do have with us Professor Shilpa Satish as well, Assistant Professor at Institute of Management, Kozhikode, and Chairperson of BMS program. Very, very important person for you all, right? Professor Shilpa Satish works in interdisciplinary areas related to social and economic systems. At IIMK, she's involved in program leadership and academic development, particularly for UG management education. Very warm welcome, Shilpa ma'am. And very warm welcome, Anil sir, very own Anil sir with us, academic head, in fact, academic director over here. He is also leading the show. He'll be asking some tough questions from the team over here. So, without any wasting the time, let me start it with Professor Venkatraman sir over here. It has been a year since the BMS launch, sir. Now, how would you reflect on this particular journey so far in terms of outcomes and expectations, according to you?
It's been a very exciting year.
Yeah.
Outcomes and expectations, I would say we are pretty much on track because we wanted to start off with a very exciting cohort, and that is exactly what we've got, possibly very exciting. So that keeps us on our toes in many ways. We got a wonderful bunch with a mix of academic talent. I would say a mix of people wanting to do and wanting to reach out to the stars. So the challenge for us is to keep up with our expectations in terms of helping them meet their dreams. But it is very much on track.
Great points being made. We have a very bad habit of deep diving. So I would like to ask you,
Yeah.
the two decisions that you took really worked well, and one area where you feel that you could have done differently. In diplomatic terms, I'm asking this.
Yeah. It's always a process of reflection going on. I'm not sure we can pinpoint, but definitely I would say one decision that we took, at least, which was spot on. When we got this idea that we should go ahead with this and the time is ripe for it, we had two choices. We could have waited to build a large campus, build all the facilities, and then launch this program. Something guided us, call it intuition, call it wisdom, call it sagacity, call it vision. Our board and our director and all the people concerned, we said, let's go for it now and start off the program as a city campus. But yes, facilitate, roomings and hostels for students and so on. I think that is one of the best decisions we would have taken. As soon as we took it, we launched it. We've had other people following us as well. And we could have waited, but then a good idea might have passed. I think that is one of the best decisions we would have taken.
Just a related question because I just read one newspaper headline last year that said that you would be also launching one of the undergrad programs in liberal studies. Is this on the cards, or we need to wait for that? Or
No. Our current program itself is a blend of three pillars.
Right.
One is on finance and economics. The
Okay.
other one is on all aspects digital,
Okay.
managing digital AI and all of that. And
Okay.
the third pillar itself is liberal studies.
All right. So, I mean, it perhaps mentioned the same program, and I thought it would be a different program, but on those lines, perhaps, Okay, no problem. Over to you,
Possibly
Anil.
it was a reference to the fact that liberal studies is an integral part of this program. Maybe that was
That
maybe some
got a
vice versa.
confusion. Okay.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
this is the undergrad program we've been thinking of launching,
Yeah,
and that's it.
that's it.
Okay,
Yeah,
we might come up with some different mode of it some years down the line, but as of now, this is what we are doing.
this is the only program. Yeah,
Yeah. So to come back to your question, yes, I think this is the best decision we would have taken.
yeah.
Well, and are there things we could have done differently? If I could have wished for a campus in a snap of a finger, a large campus and so on, yes, that's something you could wish for. But otherwise, I am
Does that
there's
mean
always
there is
continuous.
a plan of building a campus soon?
We will be.
All right,
Okay.
that's an
Yeah,
interesting piece.
we will be. Okay.
Anil, so over to
Because
you.
Yeah.
that's we always would have done that depending on how the program would have taken off and so on, which we really didn't doubt about it. But the idea was to launch it as soon as possible because every time has a shelf life. Every idea has a shelf life, and I think that's probably the best thing that we would have done. Yeah.
So, Professor, if you can tell us some key challenges, right, while establishing this UG program within the IIM ecosystem, which is known for no IIMs primarily. What were the major challenges you faced?
Uh, Anil ji, key challenges is the main thing is that as a culture, as an institution, IIMs have always been known for postgraduate programs, whether it is
Yes, yes,
for
yes, yes,
experienced executives or students coming with barely 1 to 3 years experience and getting into a very settled campus environment, right? But academically, the focus of IIMs have always been corporate training as well as postgraduate programs. So from there, when you're talking about launching an undergraduate program, you're
yes,
talking a completely different kettle of fish from who the students are, what their energy levels are, what their aspirations are, even to the aspect of, how do you teach them? How do you mold them? And the age group is different. And it's not a
yes,
difference of just 2 or 3 years that is making the difference. It's much more than that. They're in a very formative stage, just having left school, just having left homes, and that is the challenge. And we want to bring the best of the world to them. But in the process of doing that, they have expectations on their side. We have expectations of what we want to mold them to, without unduly controlling them, but yet guiding them. These are challenges one will never talk, one can never hand an end of talking about them. So yeah, that's
got it,
those are the challenges really.
got it, sir.
All right, I think next segment is interesting segment. In fact, I would involve Professor Anand as well and Professor Shilpa as well. So I would like to ask one by one all three of them. If you can answer this in one word. Program status today in one line, or one line, in fact. Professor Anand,
Exciting.
exciting. Okay. Shilpa ma'am,
A rigorous interdisciplinary programmer, which is evolving fast.
okay. All right. Professor Venkatraman. I want to say answer for the same question. Program status today in one line.
Organic.
Or organic. Oh, great point. All right. Professor Anand, biggest learning in one word in this particular 1 year.
Learning itself, we had to learn how to teach undergrads,
All
and that
right.
was a big learning.
So, do you want to say that, a student who is 18-year-old is quite different than someone who is at 22 today?
They are not different, but they are not exposed to the experience of going through 4 years of learning.
Right.
Many of them who join our MBA program comes with work experience, so they bring in quite a lot of mental models,
Right.
quite a lot of experiences. And here you have a relatively clean slate,
Yeah.
a huge level of enthusiasm.
Oh, enthusiasm is high.
And the cases that we are used to, or the stories that we are used to, may not connect with them. We have to talk their lingo.
Right. Yeah.
So connecting to them, it needs quite a lot of unlearning and relearning.
Okay.
Even
And
though
does
many
this
of us have
require
children.
unlearning as well? I mean, once again.
Of course, it requires quite a lot of unlearning. We have to change our methods and we have to change our examples and we have to change our approach. See, teaching is not just about delivering a lecture, it is about connecting with them. And they are probably much younger than half my age, much younger than my younger daughter. Uh,
Interesting
so
coincidence. Yeah.
there is a generation gap, and they
Yeah.
speak a completely different language. And
Gen Z language, I think, are you decoding those words as well?
we have to. Language is only one part of it, but their patterns of thought are also very different.
Patterns as
Uh,
well. Oh, interesting. Okay,
so
Professor
you
Shilpa.
just
Yeah.
can't teach them like you teach an MBA or an executive audience.
Okay.
Faculty has to seriously reflect, and you have to change your approach. And the
How
older
does it
you are,
change? I mean, it's a difficult question to answer once again. So if you're going in classroom A, where you have to meet with someone who is 22 to 24 years of age, then you have to meet someone who is 20, 17, 18 years of age. How do you change your psyche that point of time or perception?
we have to do that. Recycling content is not possible. Even between MBA and executive MBA, it is not
Right.
possible. So we have to create content
Oh,
that a lot of thought and a lot of building that content has to go in there. So creation of courses, we can't deliver the same lecture. It is just is not possible.
interesting conversations, in fact. Professor Anand, for wonderful insights. Yeah. Now over to you, Shilpa ma'am. Biggest learning in one word.
I think it's scaffolding. You need to create a scaffolding for them to sort of have the content because they're moving from a plus two or high secondary level to an undergrad level. You're not used to rote learning. You're becoming free
Right.
thinkers, independent thinkers. So I would say scaffolding from a teacher standpoint. You need to have those in place.
All right. Professor Venkatraman.
Yeah.
Same question. Biggest learning in one word.
Oh, uh, you got to be ready to, face things that may come at you like a curveball in terms of, the thought process that these young students have. In MBA teaching, you're used to, like Professor Anand said, you're used to a set of circumstances. But here, since you're facing the prospect of teaching undergrads, 18-year-olds for the first time, and you opened up a set of possibilities for them. For them also, it's a release of sorts, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they are trying to do things possibly that, like, they come to you and say, I want this done yesterday. They're not seeing the insides of a company. They're not seeing the insides of how to manage things, right?
Right. Right.
So the biggest learning is that we got to be ready for a different set of expectations, constantly, and how to moderate that with the reality of, how a structured program can run while not raining down in any way, in terms of enthusiasm. I think that's our biggest learning, and it goes back to unlearning many of the things. It's very hard to pinpoint just one specific aspect, even to the aspect of telling them how to go about managing their classes, managing their own faculty, and context itself is a learning for us. We take this for granted often. That's why.
Interesting, a similar thought came from one more IIM Amritsar we were interviewing the other day, and they clearly mentioned the same thing that both the classrooms are different. The student psyche is different, perception style is different, and so yeah, this is the new learning for the IIMs in this today's world who are coming up with a UG course, and certainly it's exciting as well for us how they're dealing
Yes,
with UG kids. Now, let's move
definitely.
ahead, and I think Professor Shilpa is very close to students right now because she's leading this particular program. I would like to ask her, how would you describe the day-to-day life? How does a typical day of a BMS student looks like today, and how would you compare it with the MBA experience on the campus? How is it different from that?
Thank you for the question. I think,
Yeah,
for the flagship program in Kochi, the biggest difference is the liberal arts component that we bring on board, right? That
yeah.
sort of pivots the day that an average student would experience otherwise in MBA program. For example, our BMS day, students a day would look like it has a blend of liberal arts. It will have courses on quantitative reasoning, management fundamentals. At the same time, they'll also have yoga and mindfulness. They are exposed to community projects. They have courses like appreciation of cooking, carpentry, and weaving. So, this
Cooking as well.
humane side of,
Oh, great.
yes. So this
Carpentry
humane
as well.
side, right?
And why are
Carpentry.
you building these skills? So my next question is this, I mean, so what if somebody is learning carpentry or, cooking, what value addition are they going to do in their lives, according to you?
So philosophically, we have, sort of positioned this program. We repeat the word interdisciplinarity, right, or
Right. Yeah.
multidisciplinarity.
Right. Multidisciplinary.
So which is, sort of built on this firm belief that today's problems require a multidisciplinary approach. You cannot approach, the contemporary uncertainties or ambiguities current, given the current geopolitical scenario. You need to have a multidisciplinary approach to solve these problems. So if you're just confined in one silo, you cannot solve those problems. So we want them to be human beings who experience stuff. So cooking, carpentry, all of that, it takes you back to your inner human self. So that's very different for them to establish that sense of self, not to be alienated from the outside world, to start, exploring their own self is very important to be good leaders who are ethically grounded, who have a sense of social, responsibility, environmental responsibility. So philosophically, this is what we aspire to create, right? The kind of graduates who are connected to their inner self. So that's why we have a mix of all of these courses.
Perhaps it brings the 360 degrees growth in individual perspectives, mindset, and they are ready to take roles and responsibilities later in a better way, I think. Okay, over to you, Anil sir, and I think Anand sir can answer the next set of questions. Yeah.
Yep. So, sir, if you can tell me to what extent are BMS students able to access the same ecosystem like club, peer learning, competition as the privilege that MBA students have?
We are creating not the identical ecosystem, but something which is more custom designed for the requirements of the BMS students. Like our MBA program is a 6 trimester program where each trimester might be around 10 weeks with a midterm exam, with interim exam, with summer internship, with placements. It is very hectic. BMS is rigorous. It's a semester system. They are here with us for almost a period of 4 years. And they need to discover what they want to do. They have to develop an affinity towards certain roles, certain profiles. So the clubs is not about putting some point in their resume. It is about a process of self-discovery. So we should provide them with that space, and we should also get them an opportunity to organize themselves, try their hand at leadership, and try how to be a follower. So we are creating the clubs, interest groups, as well as we are creating more and more activities. So the idea is not just to organize an event. The idea is to learn from organizing that event. Not just about the financial part or the logistics part of it, but it is also about how do we work together. So this is an exploration that we are trying to facilitate so that they can decide over a period of time, after 3 years or 4 years, what do they want to do. Some of them might want to do for higher studies. Some of them might want to do a startup. Some of them might want to focus on computer science, or some of them might want to take up sales. So the process of discovery is very important. But when it comes to a master's student, they are already coming after a degree and a couple of years of experience in an industry, and they are clear about what do they want. They are looking for that particular role, and therefore our focus is more on training them with the necessary skills in order to get into that job. So this is not just training, this is development.
Okay.
So we want them to be a better version of whatever they are when they join.
So as in the first year, I think, so how did they start this club? Because they did not have any seniors. So normally it happens seniors, gave a handover to the juniors. Now they don't have seniors. So how do they
It
start club?
comes with a lot of positives as well as some negatives. The seniors are there, and the seniors have created a ritual, and the ritual will get handed over to the junior batch.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it stifles innovation also. So
Uh-huh.
we have a clean slate. So
Okay.
without seniors, in a way, they can decide whatever they want to be rather than considering anything as sacrosanct. So there is nothing sacrosanct in BMS. So
Okay.
let them decide what they want to do and let them also make mistakes. That's absolutely fine. They don't have to live up to anybody else. So instead, they are trying to create a legacy which their juniors will probably live up to. And I think that will be quite an exciting experience for them.
Okay, sir. And what about this, like your observation about students, what be the biggest adjustment challenges for students when they come to the new environment? So what kind of adjustment students find
Some of
challenging?
them might be coming out of their homes for the first time and probably staying in a hostel for the first time.
Yeah.
that is one issue which we will have to also cope up with. So the school is a very different kind of an organization. When you are coming to a college, the space to explore is a lot more. The freedom is a lot more, but then they are away from their families.
Nostalgia.
So yeah, so they will have to discover what is done and what is not done, and of course they will have to make some mistakes, and guiding them, nudging them, without regulating them, and without putting them in a prison with a lot of rules and procedures, but at the same time communicating that idea that look, there are some bounds which you should not cross is a big challenge for us, and it's a process of learning for them also.
Did you find any kind of cases like this? Students feeling back home sickness and all these things?
Of
Ma'am,
course, it will be there, right? Professor Shilpa
okay.
might know more about it.
Yeah.
And how about the food? Because it's an interesting topic to talk on because you are transitioning from, perhaps majority of the kids are coming from North India or central part of it, and then they need to adjust to the food of Southern India. Typically some of them may like it, some of them may not. In fact, I was talking to one of the students who was also telling me, I was amidst chaos before, and now I do not find anyone on the roads today. And that's a difference also. So Professor Shilpa, if you can throw some light over there, how this transition is actually happening.
That's a very interesting point, right? So one of the things we would want them to also have is have a multicultural outlook. To be able to adapt to different cultures is also an important skill set in the contemporary world because you're looking not at the national market or national economy, you're looking at the global economy in terms of prospects. So it is very important a skill that you should sort of slowly inculcate that you're able to work in cross-cultural environments, cross-cultural settings where you also respect other people's culture. So this is something that we start with. Cultural relativism, right? You cannot be ethnocentric in a sense. So you have to also respect and understand other cultures. Of course, there will be challenges at the beginning because we are used to you're being raised and socialized in a particular way. So it starts from the oil that you use to other things, right? So absolutely, they are finding some challenges, but we are also thinking this is part of them growing up and acclimatizing to the new environment, which I'm sure is part of the learning process, especially as managers, as leaders. I think this cross-cultural competence is something that we cannot compromise on. So I am thinking that this, of course, is an initial hiccup for many of them, but in the longer term, this is going to be very fruitful and it is going to be trial-basing, in terms of them having a better chance of surviving out in the uncertain world. And in terms of adjustment, I'd also say, right, it's a steep jump from your school system. So we are not doing the rote learning. You have to be independent learners here. So that's something that our students also find a bit challenging at the initial semester a little. But as they move forward, they'd be well versed to sort of manage the system. That's it.
All right, I think fantastic points being made by the team over here. Next is once again one word segment, and I would like to include everyone, starting with Professor Venkatraman over here. And sir, I would like to ask you, it's when you compare BMS life and the MBA life, campus experience today, integrated or evolving, according to you?
BMS live. BMS,
Yeah,
you mean the BMS program with
yeah,
the
program. Campus
what is the
experience today. So I just want to understand, campus experience today. So is it integrated or evolving, or it will evolve with the passage of time?
it's evolving.
It's evolving. Yeah. Professor Shilpa, what's your take over here?
Of course, evolving, right?
Evolving.
Because every batch, every day is very different. So of course, always changing, ever changing.
Yeah. Professor Anand.
We need to discover that life. We have a city as a campus.
Last time also you made this interesting point. So, city as the campus, if you can please elaborate.
It's possible that we can create a 100-acre campus, which is away from anywhere.
Right.
But then, why do we need to create that facility? Because the facilities are not around.
Right.
So when you are in the heart of the city, where everything is there, about transportation, about entertainment, about theaters, about malls, right? This is the city which is there, and then learning happens through exposure. Management is not just a technical subject where they need to learn programming so that they can sit in front of a computer and analyze data for their entire lifetime. This is about letting go of your comfort zone and then talking to people in Malayalam. And then maybe meeting people whom you have never met in your life and experimenting with the food which you have never tasted in your life.
Life.
That opens up your perspectives. That makes you not a South Indian or a North Indian, not even an Indian, but probably a global citizen. Yeah. So a city helps in that. there's a huge difference in doing your undergrad in a city compared to an area where the nearest settlement is maybe 30 kilometers away and you have to take a taxi and visit that city.
All right, I can see a lot of optimism over there. Yeah, student life in one line, Professor Venkatraman.
Exciting.
Exciting. Okay. Then Shilpa ma'am.
I'd use three words:
Yeah,
structured,
structured.
stimulating, but also very immersive.
You said structured. I could not hear the second word.
Stimulating,
Stimulating.
intellectually largely, and also very immersive in the city that they are
Immersive as
in.
well. Okay. And Professor Anand,
Exploratory.
exploratory. Okay. Great points being made now. Let's ask Professor Venkatraman the next question. And clear, direct question, I think with several BBA, BMS programs now available, across the IIM bandwidth, what differentiates this program meaningfully beyond the IIM brand? Tough one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good question. No, not really tough. We spent over, several man-months. The people who designed this program did a lot of thinking into what this program has evolved into, right? Right from the structure, the curriculum, and what I mentioned about, how it is anchored on, what it is anchored on. So I think the clear differentiator is the innovativeness that we have brought into the program. First of all, thinking of a program that is different from a typical BBA or an IPM. See, what's the essential difference of the BMS the way we have done it? It's basically a professional program for a management, for a student seeking a management a career in management, if you want to say
After
that,
12th, yeah.
right? Today, if you go for engineering, it's a professional program in itself. If you go for medicine, it's a professional program. If you go for law, it's a professional program in itself. But if you take the case of management, if you want to use a very broad word, not that any of these people cannot become managers, you normally go for an engineering or a BCom or a BA or some stream or a BBA, and then you end up taking, maybe with or without years of experience, you end up taking a postgraduate program.
Right.
The difference in the BMS, the way we have done it, is that at the end of 4 years, we expect them to be able to hit the ground running pretty much in the same way in which what we expect many of our postgraduates to do. Maybe at not the same level, but it still gives you the orientation, the attitude, the frameworks, the scaffolding, as what Professor Shilpa mentioned, to be able to fit into an organization which is very, very fastly, the organization, the ecosystem is very rapidly evolving as well.
Right.
So our job is to be able to bring them within the ethos of IIM Kozhikode. See, IIM Kozhikode has, I know the answer is a little longer. We have anchored our mission on three aspects: Satyam, Nityam, and Purnam. What is it? Satyam is authenticity. Satyam, Nityam, and Purnam.
Okay.
Satyam is authenticity.
Okay.
Nityam is sustainability.
Sustainability.
And Purnam is wholeness or a holistic way of thinking.
Holistic way of thinking.
This is what we believe the managers who come through, or potential managers who come through the annals and halls of IIM Kozhikode should have as values. It doesn't get made in one day, but this is the orientation we want to bring to them. So we are trying to bring the same ethos into the BMS, and that's what we've done. And a lot of thought has gone into how and what needs to be taught, what they need to be exposed to, giving them enough structure while also giving them enough flexibility. So I think that sets apart this program very differently. Now, somebody else can also take the same idea, but at least we've been there first. So that's what I would say.
Right. Next set of questions will be asked by Nielsen, and I'll request Shilpa ma'am to answer them one by one. Yeah.
Okay. So it is about the BMS curriculum. How had you ensured that the curriculum is future oriented and aligned with the evolving industry needs? We hear sometimes, it's AI is the new thing, data science is the new thing, So how it is aligned, this particular course?
That's a great question. So first of all, our curriculum has a mix of three different pillars, right? We have a strong humane studies sort of emphasis. We bring in literature, poetry, sociology, anthropology, history, philosophy, psychology, believing that it's very important as a foundation to now address real world problems, because organizations also are human systems, right? And economic systems. So it's very important to have a basic knowledge of these.
And a humanities subject? Humanities subject? Can I say that? Humanities?
Sorry? Humanities, yes,
subject.
humanities and social science emphasis is there in the initial parts, which lays a very strong foundation for them to understand society, business, and environments from an economic standpoint. Second one, it's future oriented because it has a very strong computational spine. It has a strong quantitative emphasis. We have courses such as mathematical optimization, statistics, AI, programming, etc. Also build the analytical capability of the students. We also have courses which ensure that they are responsible decision makers with a very global and cosmopolitan outlook. And they're also able to solve problems from using these interdisciplinary skill sets. To be more specific, the curriculum integrates, in the first 4 semesters, AI, computation, data literacy. So the big thinking is there. Second, Sem 5 and 6, we have sustainability, design thinking, leadership, and project management. Sem 7 and 8, we also have stackable electives and minors. In emerging domains, we have 6 thrust areas. So, and also they fulfill it, complete it with a full dissertation at the very end. So it's future-proofed in that sense. All of this enabled them to adapt to a ambiguous business environment, meet technological change head-on, and also to sort of, look at all of this not from an Indian standpoint, but from a global standpoint, I would say.
Okay, ma'am. Compared to this, if we compare this particular program that IIMK offers, BMS offers, right, compared to IPM programs that other IIMs also offering. So how do you position this particular course vis-a-vis IPM courses offered by others?
Sure. So one thing, of course, we distinct, or we are sort of placing ourselves distinct from every program in terms of the analytical depth we are offering, ethical grounding, and technological fluency. But beyond that, the program is not an IPM because it's not standalone. It's a standalone 4-year program, right? It is not structured as a pipeline into an MBA program. So it's designed as a broad interdisciplinary undergraduate education, which can stand on its own without a addendum degree at the tail end. So we are hoping that they can hit the market with the capabilities that we instill in them in the 4 years, which is very deep in terms of the content and also experiential components. So we would certainly say that they are very distinctly different from the IPM programs that we have in not being a pipeline and being a standalone program.
One is apple, another is orange. You clearly want to say this. Both are very different.
I could not follow.
So I said, so you meant that, both of them are apples and oranges. We should not be comparing them. Should I take it in that way?
No, there will be elements that you can compare here and there, but in the philosophy and the foundation and the pillars on which the program is erected is enabling it to stand on its own feet without having another degree, right? If somebody is interested, if they go out, work and come back and do an MBA, they are more than welcome to do that. Right. Maybe people will decide to do a standalone, PhD in one of the courses that they, or thrust areas that they have discovered through the program. But despite all of that, the program has an identity of its own without having an additional degree is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Just a question just coming in my mind. Is it any possibility that after completing BMS 4 years, you give a student, in fact, a chance to do an executive in continuation?
Or in the MBA program in particular, yeah.
If I could take up that question, after spending 4 years with them, if they still need to do another 2 years to do an MBA, we'll be failing in our duty.
Oh.
Executive 1 year.
And so what we want ideally they should do is that they should probably get a work experience of a few years and then look at an MBA, probably a 1-year MBA or even a 2-year MBA, because there are things which an experience would bring in. There are certain courses which can be better appreciated for a person with a multiple experience, which would allow them to have a go at some of the strategic level positions, which is we expect. Like if you look at the MBA programs that are run in many of the foreign universities, they insist on significant work experience. That's what we also hope it might happen.
Sorry for interrupting you in between. Actually, if you look from the student psyche, they get one advantage in the IPM program, and that is they are not supposed to write CAT examination, or in your case it can be not writing a GMAT examination for the executive program. So it's going to become the breaking news if you say yes, we will allow them not to write any of these examination and they can come to us.
The CAT is not the secret sauce in IIMs.
Right.
CAT is just an entrance examination. What they do in IIM is what that make them eligible to do a corporate job. So this is just a public perception, right? So we have an equally rigorous exam. We have an equally rigorous 4 years of process. So that 4 years of process will ensure that our students are market ready. They are ready for their life. But at the same time, let us say they are all individuals with their own mind, and if they want to do an MBA, so be it.
Okay. But will they be allowed, an exemption from examinations like CAT and GMAT? I'm being very direct. Sorry for this. Yeah. Or will you consider this in the future, if not right now?
See, our vision, see, everything boils from a program vision, right? How do we conceive this program? It's not a question of allowing or not allowing.
Okay.
So we wanted to create a unique program, which is not an IPM,
Okay.
which is not an addendum to an MBA. The goal of this program shall not be a student doing an MBA. So it's not a question of allowing or not allowing. And I don't think CAT or GMAT is likely to be a deterrent. All right. And I don't think it will restrict anybody from doing an MBA. So they don't need a shortcut and they don't need a backdoor if they want to do an MBA. They don't need it. And we'll be kind of looking down upon our students when we tell them that, look, here is a backdoor. Join this program because after 4 years, you will get a backdoor to an MBA. They don't need it.
Okay.
They are too good for that.
All right.
Can
That
I
answers the
jump in,
question.
Rahul? Can I jump in?
Yeah, if you want, certainly. I think
Yeah,
interesting conversation building in here.
I'm tempted to because we have students already in this program who
Okay.
form teams. I told you how enthusiastic they are.
Right.
One of our team very recently went to a competition in a very well-heeled IIM, and they won the case competition in competing with other MBA students as well.
Great.
Right?
Great.
Yeah. I'm not trying to highlight one swallow doesn't make a summer, but I'm
Right.
saying the mettle of the students is such that they have the potential to do many things, and the idea we have is that they should be work ready, life ready, as he said, at the end of 4 years, and they have experiences. For example, a full semester international immersion exchange program is very much on the cards for them if they choose to do that. It's an optional immersion. So there are many experiences which would be very different from what a typical IIM that IIPM as IPM as you've seen it has been there. So yes.
The nature of an MBA or any postgraduate degree will change significantly over the next 3 years due to the national education policy, which brings in multiple entry, multiple exits, and ways of accumulating credits, and then probably seamlessly transitioning into an MBA. So this is being rolled out, and this is more of a matter of national policy, and therefore I believe that such concerns are unlikely because the current MBA program that we are having is a product of the past. This
Okay.
MBA will change because we have to change. So that's the kind of changes that are happening all around us, right? Just like in early 1990s, there is a disruption in IT, information technology.
Yeah.
We are experiencing a disruption in our education space, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And our response, BMS, is a response to that changing world.
Okay. All right. All right, the next set of questions are going to get more tougher. I'm really apologetic for that in the beginning. Let me ask it from one by one. So, one word segment once again, which is more intense, BMS or MBA program? Professor Venkatraman, starting with you. Yeah. Which is more intense now, BMS or MBA program, according to you, at IIM Kozhikode?
Intense, I would not use the word intense. This is rigorous. Both are rigorous in their own way. One is a 2-year program, one is a 4-year program.
Okay.
So here we are giving them the leeway to experience in an exploratory sort of fashion. A 2-year MBA is a very short burst in comparison. If you take a 1-year MBA, it will be even more intense from that perspective. So very, very difficult to compare on that basis. But I would say it is rigorous, but there is enough time to experiment and explore while still learning.
Professor Shilpa,
So they are both different, but then demanding in their own ways, I would say.
demanding. Both of them are demanding. Okay. Professor Anand.
It's like asking which is more difficult, 100-meter sprint or a 10-kilometer run.
I was expecting a similar answer. Look, Professor Anand is he's very quick. In fact, high acumen person, so he knows how to answer such questions really very well. So I started with Professor Venkatraman this particular time. All right, the next question, Professor Venkatraman, and that is, curriculum today, is it traditional or future oriented or future focused according to you?
Future oriented.
Yeah, Professor Shilpa.
Of course, future oriented and future proof. We are trying to future proof in
as
a
well.
way. Yeah.
Professor Anand.
We don't know what the future would require. We are equipping them to learn so that they are able to face the future.
Good answer. Okay. Next, in one word, peer quality in one word, Professor Venkatraman.
Peer quality, what kind of adjective are you looking for?
I just
Uh,
want to know if you want to say it's diverse or whether, i- anything, and there may be some contribution from this set of peer group because you know what? A lot of students after when after 12th standard, they want to live their 4 5 years with set of students who are
okay. Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah,
This peer group that they get into, very diverse and very competitive.
competitive as well. Yeah, Professor Shilpa.
They are diverse, they are competitive, but they're also very promising in terms of changing. So
Acha,
I would say
promising.
promising. Yeah.
Okay, Professor.
Impatient.
Oh, why did you say that?
Interesting.
I mean,
Impatient because they don't have many of the hang-ups of an older generation.
all right.
They want everything done and they believe they can do that.
And how
So
this patient generation is dealing with impatient set of students?
we don't want them to be patient. We want them to be whatever that they aspire they be and learn from their mistakes.
All right,
What is the point of removing that edge of impatience? That's good, right?
right, yeah.
We should be dissatisfied with the whatever we have in our life and in our career. Then only you will make it a better world. And they are dissatisfied, and that's fine.
So is the better word curious over here we should use? I mean, then impatient. Okay, perhaps, different way of thinking, certainly. All right, over to you, Anil sir, now for next set of questions and let
Yeah.
Professor Venkat take
So,
them. Yeah.
okay. So, sir, professors, it would be around the selection process and the interviews that IIM Quick conducts. So, first question is regarding the academic scores, right? So, what beyond academic scores you actually evaluate in a student?
Okay, that's a good question. See, we have already their academic scores through the entrance test that they will do, and of course their past track record in 10th and 12th and so on. So what we look for is their line of thinking, a sort of interest across multiple domains, how well they have done in co-curricular or extracurricular activities, and do they read a lot? Are they a little bit more oriented towards? After all, you're looking towards a management degree. So we try and understand where they come from, what are their aspirations. So what we do is we have a conversation with them. It's not like, do you know the syllabus and we'll ask you these questions? No. So a certain minimum aspect and certain proficiency there is already evident through their scores. So what we look for is enterprise. What we look for is a clarity of thought. What we look for is, the kind of enthusiasm they bring in multiple ways. And of course, if somebody is very strong in extracurricular and so on, it helps us, gauge their orientation as well.
Sports? Do you look after sports? Somebody's very good into sports, or let's say
Yes, we've had
current
students in
affairs,
this
for example,
batch.
what's
Right. Yeah,
happening around them?
absolutely. Excelling in sports. So we're not just a lot of kids, of course, play sports and games. We are talking, definitely we look for people who have excelled at maybe state level, national level, international level even, and we have examples of that in our current cohort, while at the same time being very well grounded in academics. We do look for that. Not just
Uh,
sports. It can be about theater. It can be about debating. It can be different fields. So we look for outliers as well who can be very different and bring that very different flair to this cohort and peer group.
Uh, right, thank you. Next question would be in connection to the interview process. Uh, what is the exact weightage that you give to the interview round and the written exam? There's some weightage percentage-wise in
Uh,
final selection.
yeah, Professor Ronithan, would you take that question?
Yeah, so basically, we shortlist them based on the performance in the BMS AT, BMS aptitude test. And once they are shortlisted, an index is computed where interview will carry 30% weightage.
Oh,
The remaining will be based on their their 10th and 12th and their performance in the score. So interview is certainly important. We are not looking at selecting people only based on their test score. We are looking at what sort of people they are. Are they
We
smart? Are
wanted
they
more clarity
curious?
on this because, as far as I know, you have now given exemption to, from this particular year, you're not taking the JEE scores. Okay, so students wanted to know more about it. So if you can actually explicitly tell us what is the weightage of 10th and 12th, what is the weightage of interviews, and what is the final weightage of BMS aptitude test going forward?
I can share the admission policy, which is available in our website. I can share it with you, which will give you the exact process with the precise weightages also. I can share it with
I
you.
have missed it, I think perhaps because this
Yeah,
particular year.
yeah,
If you have, so I'll announce it also
yeah,
via
yeah,
my
yeah,
video.
yeah.
Yeah.
Rahul,
So,
one thing the students were asking
Yeah.
to me, so I'd like to put it like this. So last year, I'm not very sure that IIMK had given the cutoff marks for sectional cutoffs or oral cutoff based on which they were shortlisted. I feel I'm not able to recall. Were there any cutoffs or it was not last year? So will it be this year that Kozhikode will come out with the cutoffs, sectional or oral?
yeah, there will be cutoffs. There will be cutoffs. That will be announced once the test is over.
Okay.
Okay. This
Usually
year.
we look at we will look at interviewing 10 times the number of candidates. So
Okay.
last year that's what we did. We have 120 seats and we wanted to invite 1,200 candidates meeting all these reservation requirements.
That's amazing. It's so clear, no, Rahul? So it is
Yeah, now it's
120
more
into
clear,
10,
I think,
1200
perhaps. Yeah.
would be shortlisted. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I think this,
And
this will give more clear
cutoff marks will be
information to
disclosed.
students. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The great part is that, I think a lot of clarity in the admission process now. And I would also like to ask you, one word once again for the interview round in particular, because, every IIM has got a different interview room that we tell them in that particular way. So, according to you, one by one, who is an ideal student in one word? Anand sir.
Someone who is ambitious, curious,
Curious.
able to get along well with other people,
Okay, that's an interesting
uh,
thought. Yeah.
and able to think on their feet.
Okay.
Someone who is quick-witted.
Okay. All right. Great points being made. Yeah. Professor Shilpa,
I would say critical thinker, somebody who
critical
is
thinker.
ready to ask a lot of questions, right? Challenge the status quo and all of that.
Professor Venkat.
Grounded yet enterprising.
Oh, grounded yet enterprising. Great point. All right. Selection approach. Is it merit-led or holistic or, something in bid of two? Professor Venkat.
Bit of both, because we're already measuring merit
Yeah.
through whatever hurdles they come through, and we look for their holistic orientation. At least seeds of it is what we look for.
Professor Shilpa.
I agree with Professor Venkat. A bit of both
Bit
is
of
what we look. Yeah.
Professor Anand.
See, we can't ignore merit, but then merit is not just evaluated or measured only by a written test score.
Right.
Because they are going to be managers, right? So we need to look at different competencies that are necessary for a manager. So to me, I would say it is merit, it is merit, it is merit, but then merit measured differently.
Okay, merit measured differently. Okay. All right. Last one word, and that is interview round in one word. I'm quick quotes interview round in one word. Professor Anand.
A conversation to understand each other better so that they can make an
Is it
informed
just an
choice.
interaction or stress interview? Because we wanted to
It
go
is
deep over there because
it
we
is
train
not
students.
a stress interview. IIM Kozhikode. Generally, even for our MBA, we don't do a stress interview.
Okay.
We want them to learn about us and we want to learn more about them. It is a
More about them.
conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor Shilpa.
I would say fun. We always have had, very good laughs based on the responses we
During
get
the
from.
interviews,
Yes. So it's not a stress interview. So
are you
please don't
judging
be
the
worried.
humor level as well? That's what I'm asking.
See, if I could intervene, I find that the parents are much more stressed than the
It's
candidates.
this time, yeah.
If you just come to one of the interview venues, you will find that both the parents will be walking around. Sometimes grandparents will also be there. Well, these candidates are pretty chill. And they
Okay.
don't have any problem.
Okay. Same question to Professor Venkat as well.
No, I would have to repeat it. It's a conversation.
It's a
It's a
conversation.
conversation for them to be at ease, so that we get to know them as they are, and they get to know what they're getting into as well.
So in
So
connection to what
I've
on
just
was saying,
shared just a minute. I've just shared the admission policy to you on the chat so that you don't
sure, sir.
miss.
I think we'll go ahead with it, and we'll do the the necessary announcements as well
Okay.
from the last year. Yeah, the changes from the last year. Yeah.
everybody, Rahul, everybody of professors said the same thing about the interview, right? Conversation. So a small question in connection, because if Kozhikode is doing conversation with each of the candidates, one with 1,200 candidates, so how can a student is getting selected and many will not? So what is the differentiating factor between
How do you
these two guys?
reject is the question in
Yeah.
particular.
On what basis if it is conversation?
We don't reject. It is basically it's a competitive process. So the performance would of course differ. It's a multi criteria process, right? We don't want to reject anybody. Given a choice, sometimes we feel bad
Okay.
after the process gets over of losing out on so many brightest people. All right. So this is the
Okay.
cream of India. So unfortunately, we don't have the capacity.
Okay.
Are you going to
Last
increase the
time,
capacity? Sorry,
no,
tough one.
not immediately, but probably over a period of 4 years, we will increase the capacity significantly.
All right.
But then we need to kind of establish the program has to go through one cohort.
All right. Next one is very tough one. Whoever wants can take this, and since this is a new program and certainly evolving, how should parents as well as students, because Supergrads is the student first organization, so I'm asking this, realistically evaluate ROI and career outcomes at this stage?
They should evaluate the ROI in terms of the learning that they're receiving,
Okay.
not in terms of the first salary they receive. It is very difficult to quantify it.
Okay.
This is true for both MBA as well as for PTP. It is very difficult to kind of take a scan of their brain and say this much is a change over a period of 4 years. So that is very difficult to evaluate. They should look at the amount of learning. Has it made them better people so that they have a better life and they have a better career? So these short-term measures of looking at the first month salary that they receive, a large number of students may not even remain in their job for more than a year.
Right.
So this is about a career,
Okay.
right? So let's say that when a child is brought up to 18 years and then you might have spent 30 lakhs on it. Does any parents look at what is ROI?
Right. You're very right.
They
But but
don't,
sir,
right?
but sir, actually, holistically today, there is a decision making in process. So I have to evaluate while actually going from one college to another, and over there, the placement statistics play a very very important and crucial role, right? And since we are in the phase of evolving, if you can give them some target figure or something, so that they can actually evaluate on that particular basis and they can make a choice if the choice is taken that point of time.
I will not encourage them to go by a number.
Okay.
Uh, you can look at the IIM Kozhikode's track record, and year after year, we have been doing consistently well in the academics as well as in the career outcomes. And naturally, they can expect to have excellent career outcomes once they complete the 4 years of time. But now, is it possible to estimate a number? Let us say this is
If
a
not number,
CTC
a
after four
range can
years.
help them, perhaps.
We believe that they should be able to get the opportunities which any MBA student probably will get into without an experience will get into a corporate career. So they can be in analyst roles, they can be in consulting roles, they can be in sales and marketing roles, they can be in finance also. We believe that they will be equivalent to a inexperienced MBA candidate from a tier one college. That is our aspiration. That is what, as of now, after almost a year of running the program, that's what we believe they are second to none.
And
So
sorry
they
for
can expect
asking
to have
this,
that
sir.
kind of career
What is
outcomes.
what is an inexperienced MBA candidate is currently earning
Somebody
today?
who somebody who joins an MBA program after let us say a degree
Uh,
without any corporate experience, what sort of opportunities that they are able to have?
okay. Is there some average figure for such freshers also inside IIM Kozhikode today? No, nothing in particular. I know. I think I'm just asking these questions because parents figure out these particular questions before making a decision, and it becomes relatively easier for them to make a decision today because they evaluate every college, and you were mentioning that they are more tense than students outside the interview rooms, perhaps because they want to secure their kids future. That's the only reason. Sorry, I've been really very
if
tough
I
over here.
may
Yeah,
add to what
yeah,
Professor Anand is saying, see, Rahul, the thing is, yes, indeed, the parents would have a significant say, or they may be taking the decision on their ward's behalf. The point is this, that you have a program design and the vision of the program is laid out, and you have a brand that is backing it as well, an institution that has risen in stature over the last few years as well. So I think the combination of this is what should give parents the confidence. To
right.
putting a number to it, there are too many variables in there that actually might confuse rather than clarify.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
So
It's not a reluctance in giving you a number, which is an easiest way of escaping this question, right? We can cite our placement statistics from the past previous years. It's basically IIM Kozhikode likes to have an authenticity and living up to our vision. Around 2 years back, IIM Kozhikode renamed our outbound career activities as CARE, Corporate Access,
Right.
Readiness and Engagement, because our director, we believe that we are not a placement shop. We are not a placement exchange.
Okay.
We are those who invest in the next generation. So we are looking at a return on our investment.
Okay.
So we will give our best, because not just a parent will have to worry about only their return on investment, but we are looking at what is the return on our investment on 120 students. How much is that investment that we are giving? So we don't want to have a narrative or a discussion or an expectation or a number-based comparison of choosing IIM Kozhikode over others. But of course, the statistics are there, the MBA program is there, but that's not our vision. That's not our values are.
We completely respect that, sir. And certainly, I think yeah, I'm really sorry. I ask these questions because, there are a lot of parents, students associated with us. We are India's #1 YouTube channel. We are being looked again and again. And perhaps because of that, I had to ask these questions. Yeah, over to you, Anil, sir.
we are glad you asked this question
Thank
because
you,
we
sir.
want this message to go across.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Thank you.
It's
Care is
connected
not
to
just a renaming,
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
shift in philosophy, the shift in orientation. We're glad you asked the question.
It's connected to the same thing what Rahul has asked. Like, what kind of career pathways or opportunities do you foresee for first batch in the near future? What kind of summer placement, internships, or live projects or something like how it is going to evolve the near future
See,
prospects?
as of now, we have a structured project component between their third and fourth year, which they have to mandatorily do, which institute will facilitate. It is similar to a summer internship project, which an MBA student will do between first and second year. We have envisaged it between their third and the fourth year. Now we encourage them when they join in the first 6 months, even though they are very excited and very eager to take up multiple projects and assignments and participates in case competitions. We ask them, you settle down and be comfortable and then explore and decide what is it that you like doing, and probably look at competitions and upskilling in your second year and all that. And this is what we expect them to do. Now, coming to career, we have set up a CARE, Corporate Access, Readiness and Engagement, because we believe that the more than the outreach of reaching out to the companies and inviting them to the campus and facilitating an interview, we should do a lot of internal processes, which involves giving them mock interviews, identifying what are their strengths and weaknesses, providing them inputs and training. Well, different companies follow different selection process. Some of them might have an aptitude test, some of them might have a group discussion, training them to face a group discussion or a group task or an aptitude test, and then giving them multiple interviews so that they are ready. So it is about making them learn their strengths and weaknesses and then compensating for their weaknesses and building on their strength. And sometimes they don't know. See, we don't want to talk again of a number, because at the age of 18, I believe that a student should not be targeting an anchor number at the end of 4 years. They should be looking at what would excite them in the future. So
Correct.
they should be able to discover, do they like numbers? Can they see themselves in a career where they will be an investment analyst? Can they see themselves in a career where they are a brand manager or they are a digital product manager? So initially, at least in the next couple of years, they should explore multiple options because a BMS will allow them to have multiple choices. Uh, See, this is very different from another program like an LLB, where after an LLB, well, 90% of them will end up being a lawyer. So this allows them to have multiple options. So our effort is to ensure that multiple career pathways are there. Some of them I already mentioned. Some of them might be in sales and marketing. Some of them might be investment analyst. Some of them could be product managers. Some of them could get into banking and financial services. Why not? Some of them start up their own businesses. We are also encouraging them to be entrepreneurs. So this is what we assume that they are also looking forward to. But there is no one job which is stereotyped and comes with a certain role clarity. No, that is not. This is a management education of the past, and now it is very, very different.
So have we planned some kind of entrepreneurship cell, and I'm going have got some kind of funding to those students? Just out of the way, I'm asking if
We
at all.
have an entrepreneurship cell called Live, which is taking care of incubating
Okay,
businesses. Now we are rolling out this in the next semester. We are rolling out as an opportunity for the students to go through a structured program so that they will know how to do a startup.
very nice,
So
very nice.
yeah, yeah,
It's an eye-opening for me.
yeah.
Okay, sir. So I'd like to conclude with the last set of questions based on future direction and strategy. So my question, but will be followed by Rahul. Is there any possibility that the future BMS students may have defined pathways or advantage when applying for MBA programs at IIM Kozhikode later on? So we have discussed this, but I'm just asking you officially if you can answer this.
See, as of now, we are in a flexible system. They are learning different courses at the master's level itself before they complete their master's. So it is possible, but then we'll have to also wait for the complete implementation of the national education policy so that they are able to probably do an MBA probably in a shorter period of time.
Got
Now,
it.
are we already creating an MBA program so that all these BMS students can join the first year of an MBA or a 1 year MBA? As of now, no. We are not doing that. We want this to be a 4 year BMS program. Now, are we open? If some of them join our MBA program, we'll be happy, but probably after a few years of experience.
Got it.
If some of them join our PhD program, we'll be very, very happy.
Okay.
The final one, and a very, very important one, sir, because in today's time, a lot of students after 12th now are entering into the management set of courses, right? And all the IIMs are mushrooming up with those courses. But there is not one single exam over there. What exactly happens is you need to write one examination on Sunday, next Monday is another exam, and perhaps there's a clash of two exams on some one particular day, right? So, will there be a common UG entrance examination in the future? Or can IIMs come together on this? And will that be a possibility in the future, sir?
Of course, there is certainly a possibility which will save quite a lot of cost, a lot of effort for all the IIMs. But maybe it's a few years away, just like CAT is jointly organized by all the IIMs. Now that you have a larger number of IIMs, maybe it may take a few years.
It may
I'm
take a
hopeful
few
that
years.
that might be a reality. But at the
And
same
will
time,
IIM Kozhikode take a step forward in that particular
we
aspect?
can, but in a way, I'm wondering, isn't it better to have multiple shots at getting admitted? Like if there is a single exam conducted in a single day, if you have a headache, your chances are gone. So here you have an option to take similar exams 5 times, 10 times.
But
If you miss out
there
on
are
one,
challenges also, sir, over there. A parent has to pay a lot of fees, a lot of days, and not only that, clash with boards, clash with CUET examination. Such challenges are very difficult. And
no,
going
no,
from one city to another,
I understand that. Possibly in future there might be a common entrance examination, which is there for central universities, which is there for IITs. JEE is there,
yeah,
but I'm just putting a counterpoint across.
yeah, I
You may
completely
imagine
understand that.
that
Yeah,
your admission to your bachelor's depends on a single day, single exam.
right. That's
That
the
is going to
only
be
thing.
very stressful, right?
Yeah,
So even though there is a little additional effort and money for it, this is in a way giving them multiple choices.
right.
Life is about choices, right?
Yeah. So to
So,
conclude, I would say this, there were some tough questions, but there were a lot of intelligent answers. And, Team IIM Kozhikode outperformed the questions completely. Thank you, Team IIM Kozhikode. Thank you Professor Anand, Professor Venkat, and Professor Shilpa for making this particular interview big. I'm quite sure BMS program of IIM Kozhikode is going to give a lot of returns to this particular society evolving. Our students are also studying over there. We have taken the inputs from them, and certainly all of them were really positives. Thank you for joining on the platform. Thank you for giving this
Thank
opportunity.
you.